So thanks for sitting with us.
Yes.
The first thing I was thinking just to ask you at the end as we're sort of finishing up on our fourth weekend is if there's something that's particularly memorable for you, something in this training that really stands out.
There's so much. I've had definitely a lot of impactful experiences. I think off the top of my head, I'd say one of the things that surprised me early on in the training was just sort of how complete the model is, and how, although it deals with trauma and stress very effectively, and that's sort of the focus, that there is so much more to it, and that it's really a complete way of working with clients from start to finish. So, but in terms of, gosh, the most impactful experiences, I would say, have to do with some of the trade work that I've done with others, and just some of the way I feel like it's been some therapy for me. And I think that's also a very positive learning, part of the learning experience, in that since I've walked that road now with someone, that I feel a little more confident being someone else's guide to doing the same thing. Well, I think, all of us have stresses and traumas in our background, and so I feel like I've had an opportunity to actually work through some of them as part of the training. That might sound frightening to someone who's just going into it thinking, oh, I'm going to be in this vulnerable position to do it, but I found the container to be very forgiving in that sense, and not frightening. It's indeed, that's built right into the DNA, if you will, of this method, is making it very safe for a person to go wherever they need to go, and making it safe for them not to go where they're not ready to go. So, having said that, I feel like I definitely went to some deep places in my own psyche and my own background, and was able to do some processing around some existing stresses and traumas that I had in my background.
And if you think back to when you signed up for this course and what sort of brought you here and to the end of this last weekend, do you feel like your expectations have been met?
Wildly exceeded, I would say. Yeah, there's way more to it than I thought, and I feel like I have a lot more tools than I was planning on getting. From seeing the one-day kind of seminar on it and getting some of the videos and stuff, it really kind of gives you a fairly narrow slice of what is available, and I think it's a lot richer, a lot deeper than the impression I got just from that. Yeah.
And do you see its relevance now in the work that you're doing? Is this something you think you'll be able to use off the bat, or something you anticipate using in the future? Absolutely.
In fact, I anticipate using the kind of overarching plan as the keystone of my practice, really. It makes it sound like everything I learned this far is not going to be useful, but I'm not going to go that far. I know you have a testimonial. But no, honestly, the fact that there's so much safety for the client and so on built in, and being able to titrate the experience to the client's desired level, I think it also meshes well with other tools that I have, in finding ways to, undermine the forces that are creating a person's symptoms, negative symptoms, and relationship difficulties. Utilizing other tools alongside is going to help. So I absolutely am going to apply the lessons immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if we sort of break it down, there's a lot of stuff that we go over. So as we think of the building of this protocol, we're starting with memory systems and the autonomic nervous system, working in then the somatic pieces, and then sort of integrating that all with this transference piece. Mm-hmm. What to you has felt most compelling about this model?
That's a good question. Most compelling. I would say, learning about that there's this hidden superpower everybody has in their system to be able to cope with trauma, and that it's just a matter of removing the blocks to it. That's deeply powerful. Mm-hmm. That it's a power we already all have, a capacity we already all have, and it's just obscured by one thing or another. And then on top of that, I think the transferential piece, just the way, the model of understanding how the relational component of trauma gets encoded in the event memory, and the specific steps to work through it. Certainly there's art as well as science to it, and I'm sure that as I practice more, I'll get better, and as I deepen my experience of it, it'll improve. But again, I think the leverage of the tools is much more powerful than I originally expected, and I think that's because its grounding is something that's already part of our biological heritage that we already have within us.
Thanks. And in thinking about your experience and how you might use this, could you imagine yourself recommending it to a colleague or somebody to come take this training?
Absolutely, and I, it's kind of increased my skepticism about other methodologies. I know I'm like handing you this. This is like you may not want to include it because it's like too much, but it really has. It's like, wow, what is EMDR doing exactly along the scale? Nothing, Sorry, it's just what it seems like, and and I've had a little bit of exposure to rapid resolution therapy as well, and it seems similar along the lines of the EMDR and so on. And it just doesn't seem like it accesses this existing capacity we have in the same way, and it doesn't seem like it's as complete a resolution pathway. It seems to me as it's more of a just a symptom management system, which again, there's a great value in doing that, as we know, whether it be medication or other techniques for managing something. That's great, but this feels like it really gets down to the root of what's going on and allows a true healing and resolution. That's something I really came away with from this.
And with all of that, what would you most like to tell others about either your experience, about the training, what really feels like?
Yeah, I would say it's sometimes it's difficult to really convey what goes on experientially, in a situation until you've truly the experience. I would just say it's a very powerful, meaningful method, and I highly recommend it. I guess also just in terms of the small changes that I feel like I've been able to make just through the little bits of exercise healing that we've done throughout the workshop, I feel have done something to improve my life just as a trainee. And I feel that that power can be extended in the therapeutic environment. So I would say that it's important to experience. I think it's an important tool set, but also an important experience just for a therapist to have.
Yeah, it's not a verbal modality. It's not a cognitive therapy, and you can't communicate it.
Yeah.
Through those means. I hear you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's difficult for me to just lay out everything that happened, and even if I did, it wouldn't make any sense because it's kind of a felt experience as well as a known one. Mm-hmm.